quote this on me. There is no way the Orioles or Red Sox make the playoffs this season. There's no way. There's no way.
For me, I gotta build a snowman.
I don't think all Mavs fans look into the stats like I do.
I'm mixing names, swapping pitchers' names, and everyone today. So thanks for catching.
I've given up on Drew Lock. I think you trade him.
I set the bar really low at the NBA predictions.
How are we talking about the Thunder in a MLB preview? I have no idea.
That's a perfect name. What you said, name brand players. Like, it's not the great value Target brand toilet paper or whatever. It's the Charmin Ultra Strong.
I don't know if Nick Nurse is the coach for the Raptors. I don't know if he's the reason why they won the 2019 championship. I feel like that was more of a team effort. Yeah, this questions the firing of Dwayne Casey, who I think is a very underrated coach. He's making the best of the Detroit Pistons situation.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I was surprised that the Clippers gave up Lou Williams.
Everything's going wrong for the Lakers at the wrong time.
The Mavs cannot say we do not miss Seth Curry shooting threes.
Them losing like 40 players to the Chargers who play online.
I'm just gonna, and it lands to the Dolphins. I'm just gonna have to throw my hands into the air.
I agree 100%, and the reason why I agree is because this is a terrible trade for the long term.
To me, the Capitals really pushed all their chips for this season. So happy belated birthday to Madison Bowie.
Sam Bennett's someone I really expected to be a better player.
Hello, I'm Mike Grimes, and you've been listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to free agency discussion of like crazy deals that stood out to us, and then the baseball lockout, which is going to take up the majority. But I want to talk about how free agency was incredible, and wasn't due in part of the lockout because some players didn't know what's going to happen, and some players signed, and the Rangers spent the most money in free agency ever with $561 million. Do you know who the closest team is to that before the Rangers broke that record, Austin?
I don't. Educate me, please.
It is the Yankees with, I believe, $456 million in 2014.
Oh, that's not even close. That's $100 million different. That's insane. 100. You said 450. That's 110 million different.
It's around like 456.
Yeah, so that's 110 million different.
Yeah.
It's
awesome. And because like the Yankees, of course, have the money to spend. They haven't been spending, but the Rangers are a small market team and traditionally had not spent big money. They spent 500 of that $506 million was on two players. One, Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. And then, of course, you have the Cubs spending around $20 million per year for Marcus Stroman. And then who else did they sign? Oh, it was Yan Gomes.
yeah.
It was the biggest deal since 2015 when they signed Jason Hayward. So the Cubs, who traded away all their stars because they didn't want to pay people, and then they're paying a bunch of money. Then you have the Mets going out paying $43 million per year for Max Scherzer at 37 years old, getting Starling Marte, getting Eduardo Escobar. Then you have the Twins keeping Buxton in Minnesota for now with a $100 million extension. And then you have Sandy Alcantara signing with the Marlins, skipping over the arbitration. So he'll make a lot of more money than arbitration. Arbitration, for those that don't know, it's you go to court and you argue that this player doesn't deserve this much money, and it's basically a big battle. But the Marlins and Rays both got rid of that with the addition of with the signing Wander Franco. What else do you want to add about arbitration?
Yeah, so I'm taking a B law class, which means that I do business law. And we were talking about arbitration. So arbitration is non-negotiable. Both sides say what they believe, and then the arbitrator says this is how much you're going to make. And neither the team or the player can argue. It's something that goes into effect. Like if they don't agree, an arbitrator is just like, you're worth $4 million. so you get paid $4 million, and neither the team nor the player can disagree. And if you're not worth $4 million, well, you're not worth $4 million, but you still get $4 million. It doesn't matter. The team has to sign it. The player has to sign it. It's non-negotiable.
Yeah, it can get really messy. So the Marlins and Rays paying big money to their young stars, and that's what I think a problem with baseball, with my opinion, is the attraction of young fans, and I think it's hard when you just have a terrible team tanking, because that's one way to win a World Series, like the Cubs did. Astros came very close. They've gotten some great players from tanking, but those like 3 or 4 years when the team is just awful doesn't really attract anyone. You have to wait till they get good, and there's not a definitive chance that they do get good. Like, it statistically works, but still, it's not 100% chance. So these signing big name players for like the Rangers, like Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, just changes the outlook, and you have names, and it's going to be much better baseball. And it's not just going to be like whenever the Yankees or like the Dodgers played the Rangers like last year, it was just completely one sided. And there's like 10 runs when the Rangers barely get one, or a team gets no hit twice. Like, that's why I'm to the Cleveland Guardians now. That really doesn't attract fans, and it makes it completely one sided. And then to the point of playoffs, there's not much of a playoff race. Like, if a team makes it to the wild card and then they face the number one's going to kill them because they're not that good, because they haven't faced much competition. But like when you're talking about the NHL, there have been teams that the Canadians barely get in, and then they go on to the Stanley Cup Finals. And there have been, like, the Braves were a wild card, and the Nationals, and they won the World Series, but that's very few and far between. So I really like how up before the lockout, the smaller market teams were paying big money and keeping their players. It wasn't just all these players going to the Yankees or the Dodgers. They were staying where they were. And it was so fun looking at my checking to see what happened, because you see Renfroe traded to the Brewers, and just seeing what is going to happen. It was very similar to the MLB trade deadline, but then you have the lockout, and now you can't build on anything. You for as long as they want, and the meeting between the owners and the players lasted 7 minutes, and this whole episode, as long as we've been talking, is around 6 minutes, Austin. It's been crazy. So it's annoying how the owners and players just really don't want to talk. And I think baseball is at a crossroads from where whatever happens in this next deal, if it happens, is it should, but this could really alter the future of baseball.
Yeah, no doubt. I I don't know what's going to happen because this could go one way or completely another. There could be little to no changes, and they finally agree just because they want to get back to play baseball. Or what happens is there's drastic change, and the game as we know it is completely different. I would not necessarily be surprised on either one of those fronts, and I don't know what to expect because the league can be very, very surprising at times. I can't believe that it got to this point, even though we both knew this was going to happen. It just seems like it happens more in a league like this, where there's so much disparity between the beliefs of the players and the beliefs of the owners, and we've really seen that to be true throughout the last decade. There's been many changes that the players want to make or the owners make, and the other side just does not agree, and that can really hurt uh, the relationship between them both.
Yeah, the players, I think the owners want to expand the playoffs, and that makes sense from the owner's point of view because they want to make more money. If you have playoff series, you make more money. And it's 10 teams right now, so only 10 of the owners get to make money. And the owners all want to make money, and they like to cry that, oh, we're so poor. Oh, we just lost $1 million out of the 500 million we have. poor owners. And while players, the annual average for a player, like of course Corey Seager got 325 million. But what about the Ronald Guzmans, the Wander Francos, who are really good, but they're only making a couple 100,000? And so that's why those arbitration deals are big, because if Wander Franco doesn't turn out well, he still gets it was 250, right? The Wander Franco was it
No, it's
300?
182.
182. Okay.
Yeah, pretty
So
sure.
he still gets a lot of money, and not there are big players that get to make money. Like I'm sure Derek Jeter could live off all the money he made, but the players that are struggling, they will have to get jobs later. And it is just a game, but it's fun playing that game. But not every player gets those large contracts like a Seager or a Simeon. So I'm curious, what do you think about that? It's the owners, the players are also not in the right. Like there's some things, okay, that's just a little too much. But the owners who voted unanimously, I think, are just being very greedy, and they should be willing to give up some stuff for the players.
Yeah, um, it's just disappointing as a fan uh, of the league that you love so much. I love baseball. I love watching baseball, and a big reason why I love the playoffs in baseball is that there is so much parity. Every series can be close, no matter what the seeds are, and that's because only certain amount of teams make it. 10. In basketball, bad teams make the playoffs all the time. In hockey, bad playoffs. The difference with hockey is every team is the parity in the league is insane. So an 8 seed is actually like good versus the NBA where the 8 seed almost has no chance every time they play. That's why I can't stand the NBA playoffs for a little bit, is because, and that's why it should be the top 16 teams that make it, not 8 and 8, because teams that are undeserving of a playoff spot make it for no reason, and it makes the playoffs less and less interesting. Where okay, I'm just not going to watch that series. Oh, I'm just not going to watch that series. Where in the MLB, you have to watch every series because the Nationals will beat the Dodgers and then go on and win the championship, or a whole number of things. Every series is close or has the potential to be close, and that's what I love about the MLB. While NBA 7 versus 2 seeds are almost always blowouts, even some 6 versus 3 seeds are blowouts. It just doesn't seem like there's much parity, and that's what I love about baseball right now is that 10 teams make it, 10 teams deserve it. And now, while I would change the seeding of the playoffs, we talked about this before, that it should be the 3 division winners and then the best 2, but reseeded once they make the playoffs so that the Dodgers and Giants don't mean the NLDS. I think the Giants would have had a great chance against the Braves. They would have matched up so much better, and maybe we have an entirely different story. Maybe not. I'm not trying to take anything away from the Braves. They had a great season, but we don't really know how it was going to turn out. And I think that's the only change I would make to the playoffs. But on the other front, I just hope we get to play baseball for half a season at least. I don't want there to be no playoffs this year. Like you said, players that don't have that much money that make $850,000 a year for an MLB player, that's not that much. And there's players in the minors. That's what I'm most concerned about. The minors. You're making 30,000 a year, and that's all you're making. And you may get some. You get benefits like you get free food meals and stuff, free transportation, like when you're going to games and stuff like that. But you don't make enough for well-being if you're not currently playing baseball, and it's a concerning part of the game. So I expect a lot of players to go into the Dominican League, Mexican League, Korean League, Japanese League, so that they can get paid to play baseball.
Yeah, and speaking of the minors, like those players that are making 800,000, that's after they get through the minors, which is incredibly hard. And the minors, I know it's a couple of years ago, uh, Coach Grimes talked about how he had to ride a bus 2 games
Yeah.
in the minors, and just how a bus would break down. And there are stories of how the players can't really eat well because they don't have enough money. So it's just incredible to make it into the majors and then you still don't get a lot of money. So I think one thing I would like to see is maybe a draft lottery. I kind of like that idea to break tanking. I really am against tanking in the MLB. Like, yes, draft picks are important, but just not putting a good team out there, I think keeps fans away from falling in love with baseball. Because and I'm not a I really would like to see the ball put in play more, and that could go with having like one ball, not changing the ball so you get different outcomes. Like there was Odyssey Sports, I believe, came out with an article that talked about how the Field of Dreams game had maybe a bouncier ball. And that explains more of the home runs. That could explain. This is all there is some basis, but it's not definitive. And then there's a Rangers and Mariners game where the ball wasn't as bouncy, and that affected the outcome. And they would do it for just the entertainment. And I think there is something entertaining about seeing a double, seeing a triple, seeing just a single, and not just having just a guy fouling off the ball like 8 times in at bat. I think is great. I just do
I
not, and I
100% agree, Kevin. I agree so much.
just seeing a player like get a 3 pitch strikeout, to me that kind of ruins it for the pitcher too. And it like we'll have inflated strikeout numbers, but that's only because an at bat really turns into a home run or strikeout. So a 16 strikeout game like it was in the 90s really isn't that. I think 14 strikeouts in the 90s doesn't really, it's not, when that happens we're like, oh, that's not that much. I think we need something more. Just put the ball playing more, and that'll attract more fans is what I'm trying to say.
What I've been really a big reason why I'm such a big Brett Gardner fan is because every at bat it seems like he fouls off 5 pitches. He led the league in pitches per at bat last year. So, I mean, that proves it right there. He gets at bats far into the count. He pushes up the pitcher's count. He's not going to just swing at the first pitch and try to hit a homer. He's going to wait. Okay, that's how this at bat's going to go, and that's like the pureness of baseball is watching a guy go into an at bat saying, "I'm going to get on base." It doesn't really matter how. And I know Brett Gardner has been trying to hit home runs more as of late, and I'm not really against that because it's how he has to stay in the league nowadays. However, I love watching a Brett Gardner at bat because he can do some special stuff. Whether it's fouling off 11 pitches in that playoff game versus the Indians and then tying the game. I mean, not tying the game, getting 2 runs in. That was in the 2017 ALDS against the Indians. He fouls off 11. No, there's 11 pitch at bat, and at the end of it, he gets a single, hits in 2 runners, and we end up winning that game, and obviously losing to the Astros in a questionable series that they definitely cheated in. But it's just the pureness of baseball. And I feel like if you're striking out on 3 pitches every at bat, it takes away from that joy.
And then compare Brett Gardner to another outfield buddy, Joey Gallo. I love Joey Gallo. I love him, but he only hits home runs or strikes out. He'll sometimes get a walk.
No,
but
he gets a lot of walks.
He gets a lot of walks, but
but
he doesn't put the ball in play as much. And that's the Yankees, to me, are a team outside of Brett Gardner that it's home run or nothing. And that's just how Brian Cashman noticed the change in baseball's philosophy, and he went all in for it. And that worked in 2018 in the regular season, with the addition of Giancarlo Stanton. I just think baseball would be a lot more entertaining with the ball in play, and it would fix the inflated stats, the inflated strikeouts. And maybe another thing that players probably want is sticky stuff. And I think to an extent, sticky stuff, because you have rosin, but you also have stuff for the bat. So I think if the owners and players want to have an actual conversation that lasts longer than 7 minutes, then that's something to be discussed. But we're not going to know. And I think it's going to be a while till this lockout ends. And this is the second work stoppage. But in 94, it was a player's strike. A lockout is when the owners vote and they say, we're not going to do anything. And this is the 9th work stoppage in MLB history. So this is, as you said, we could see this in 2020, but it's also a thing over time. The baseball has just struggled with it, and I think we're definitely not going to have a full season. I hope we can have a season longer than 60 games, closer to 100, but I really hope I'm wrong and like they just start next week and then we can get back to the wild free agency because I'm sure the Yankees are going to make a splash. You also have Freddie Freeman. I don't know what the Braves are doing there, but also Matt Olson, the Diamondbacks. I think there's a lot of more deals that could be happening, but they're not because owners don't want to do anything and the players won't do anything. So, any final thoughts before we end this?
No, I just hope we get back to playing baseball sooner rather than later.
And during this work stoppage, we'll still be doing MLB Opinion of the Week and offering our thoughts on how we can change baseball for the better. So, thank you for listening and be on the lookout for those episodes.